But I do think Phil Collins summed it up today. He said the manifesto will work and it will leave the question of what the Labour government will really be like for another day. And I think there's probably quite a lot of truth in that. And I think, to your point, Claire, a prospective government cannot look into the future and foresee every single circumstance, and they can't map out every single bit of policy. I'm pleased with this in terms of the risk register. I think it's really astute because it's very safe and it has lots of radical intention. My anxiety is the reliance on growth. That's my big anxiety, because I think the recipe for growth in there is really good. Having a proper industrial strategy is important. Having stability and securenomics is very important. Having a proper regional skills strategy is really important. All of that is really important. The but, though, is that all of this stuff, and we spoke to Nick Macpherson on some of our early episodes, and he was really saying, look, skills is incredibly important if you want to boost productivity. The big but, though, is that growth and all these ingredients for growth, they take time. They take actually quite a bit of investment, initial investment to get the infrastructure up. It also involves, it's not the sexiest work in the world. Like, you've got to really be prepared to put in quite a long shift into it. But I think Starmer's up for that. But also the truth is quite a lot of growth, as well as putting those good ingredients down, also relies on a bit of luck. And if something unforeseen were to happen in this very fragile world and growth, gets hampered and harmed by that, then, Nick, that's a problem, isn't it? That's going to be a big kind of, if you're relying on growth, and we know we're living in an uncertain world, it just leaves you a bit vulnerable.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have committed to the highest sustained growth in the G7. I don't know why Labour made that its first mission, because that's dependent on what other people do. And I think there's just an element of that, of trying to be world leading, superpower this, top of the world in that, G7, etc. I personally would be a bit more humble about those sorts of things, and frame your ambition slightly differently. But yeah, we have a major problem with economic growth and productivity, and we have a major investment problem. I think the manifesto addresses the investment problem, or it seeks to at least spell it out in ways that haven't been done before. And we have an inequality problem. It says less on inequality. And so the risk is not just that you don't get growth. The risk is also that growth is not widely shared across the country, that it doesn't lead to productivity improvements in, what people call the foundational or everyday economy, that the returns to growth aren't more regionally distributed, and so on. So there is a lot riding on that. But, 'twas ever thus for Labour governments. It's not, it's not that growth has not been a central objective of Labour governments in the past. It's simply that what Labour inherits this time, in terms of the previous 14 years, well, since the financial crisis, essentially, is much worse than it is inherited in the past in terms of the state of the economy and economic performance. So, yeah, you're right, Ayesha. It's there's a lot of risks involved in it, but there's also questions of how that growth, where it happens, how it happens, who benefits, where the rewards go, and those are big questions too.